Hey there, everybody. It is Jeannie Walters. It's another Friday, which means this is another Experience Investigators Ask Me Anything webinar. So, as we get started today, we're going to be talking about how to develop cross-functional customer experience buy-in. That's a lot of words. We'll kind of unpack that and talk about why it's so important. And also, I have some ideas for you to build that coalition throughout your organization. Make sure you have that cross-functional buy-in and why it's so important to customer experience strategy and success. Now, as always, we are looking for your questions. So as you join us, please let us know where you're joining us from. And if you have questions throughout this discussion, drop those in the chat. As always, today we have our Director of Marketing, David Hornreich, live from the Pacific Northwest. How are you?
Hello, hello. Doing well. Excited to dive into this topic. I know it's a lot of words, but I think it's a lot of good words. And
It
I
is.
love this topic and think that it's really, really impactful. So I'm super excited to dig in. And yeah, like
Excellent.
Jeannie said, I'll be reading your questions and comments as you add them in the chat. So by all means, don't be shy. And any questions that you've got, we will
Mhm.
attack at the end during our Ask Me Anything session.
That's right. And yeah, please, as you join us, drop in where you're from. If you have comments as we go too, they don't have to be just questions. You can just let us know if you've ever dealt with any of these things or are looking for different solutions or anything like that. And at the end, we'll cover all your questions, even if they're not exactly related to this topic. That's why we call it Ask Me Anything. So I'm excited. Should we go ahead and get started?
Yeah, let's get started. Want to say hi to Umesh, our first person in the comments today.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Great.
Great to see you joining us from Dubai. Thanks for being here. And
Excellent.
yeah, exciting topic. Let's dig in. I'm going to go away and let you get started, Jeannie.
Great. Thanks, David. All right, everybody. Well, first of all, I always love these discussions because we do have people from all over the world joining us. I'm sitting in my home office just outside Chicago, Illinois. You might be joining us from all over the globe. And that's because there are so many of us in this customer experience space who are looking to make positive change, not just for our customers, but also for our organizations. And so today we're talking about a really important topic when it comes to the success that we bring to our organizations and to customer experience in general. So thanks for joining us. My name is Jeannie Walters. I am the founder and CEO of a company called Experience Investigators. I've been really learning and sharing and doing everything I can in the customer experience space for more than 20 years now. And I would love to hear from you. We get a lot of our inspiration, our questions. We provide a lot of our content based on what you're seeking. So don't be shy. Reach out to us. We're on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. We're in all over LinkedIn. Whatever is your channel of choice, go ahead and let us know. What do you want to hear about next? What's important to you? What are you looking for? We also have a ton of resources for you. If you haven't already, sign up for yearofcx.com. That's where you can find our guides, our workbooks, our checklists, all sorts of things that will help you lead as a customer experience leader. The mission of my company is to create fewer ruined days for customers. By being here with me, you're helping us live that mission. So thank you. All right, let's talk about teamwork and why it's so important, specifically when it comes to customer experience. When we look at this from a data standpoint, the data actually shows us that this is one of the most important things we can do as customer experience leaders is create an environment of cross-functional cooperation to make sure that we're driving that customer experience success. In fact, in the latest 2022 State of CX report from our friends at GetFeedback, they reported that CX teams that collaborate cross-functionally are 27% more likely to have a high or very high return on investment in their CX programs, from their CX programs. So when we think about just that idea, it can feel a little abstract, right? Why is this so important? And what does that really mean? And you know what? Some of this, I'm going to be honest, it's not fair. We need to create these coalitions, this cross-functional support as CX leaders, probably more than any other person in the organization. Because as we've talked about before, CX is a team sport. We cannot do this on our own. So today we're going to talk about common challenges to cross-functional cooperation, and then we're going to talk about some ideas to help you address that. So, the first one, customer experience is not seen as a universal business strategy. For those of you who show up here time and again, you've heard me talk about this a lot. We'll talk about it some more. Number two, customer experience is seen as nice to have or simply soft skills. Number three, customer experience is a set of tactics disconnected from strategy. If there's something I'm seeing again and again, it's number three. We often are asked to lead by tactic instead of thinking about how those connect to the larger, not just CX strategy, but business strategy in general. So the first one is about that strategy. Customer experience is not seen as a universal business strategy. If we do not have that universal view, if we do not agree and have alignment on what does it really mean to deliver great customer experience for us, for this brand, for this organization, for our specific customers, if we don't have a shared definition even of what customer experience is, and if we're not communicating with each leader throughout the organization saying, when we do this well, when we deliver for our customers, guess what? You win as a leader. We get all these improved business results. We make sure that we are, respecting what our organizational goals are. Now, as you know, we have a few tools that we found very, very helpful here. One is a mission statement, making sure you have a universal customer experience mission statement. This helps with that alignment. And then we also have something called a success statement. When we are talking about these specific challenges, I want you to take a step back and be really honest. Sometimes I talk about how customer experience is about sharing the hard truths. Sometimes that means with ourselves and with our own teams. So make sure if you hear these things and you think, gosh, I don't know if we do have a universal definition for customer experience in our organization. Don't feel bad about that. A lot of organizations are in that same boat, but you as a CX leader and a CX change agent can be the one to really make those changes. So as you hear these challenges, if they sound relatable, if you're struggling with them, you are not alone. These are something we see again and again. Challenge number two, customer experience is seen as this nice to have, warm, fuzzy, soft skills type thing. If we talk about customer experience as magic, then what happens is when the rubber meets the road, when we have hard challenges, external things happen like, supply chain disruptions or inflation or all of these things that we're dealing with in today's world. If we talk about it as, yes, it's this nice to have and we get some results, the minute that we have to make hard business decisions about expenses and about cost, it's easy for leaders to hear that and think, well, then we can take it off the table. We have to approach this like any other part of business. It's how we do business. That means it's management. We have to show up as leaders who understand that we are managing an important part of the overall business strategy for our organization. We have to talk about outcomes. We have to make sure we know how to measure success, all of those things. So, collaboration can only really happen if we have that universal standard on what a successful customer experience means. If you and I are talking about that differently, or if the marketing lead thinks it's actually just about conversion on the website, that means it's a good customer experience. And then maybe distribution is saying, well, no, it's actually how quickly we respond to people. Those might be true as part of the overall strategy, but how do those impact the business? We have to get really clear on what does success look like and how does it impact the business. And then finally, this last one is definitely related to these first two, but customer experience is often approached as a set of tactics instead of a strategy. It's completely disconnected from the business strategy. So you might get some quick wins here. And in the beginning, it can feel like you're getting traction. But if you're not really looking at this in a universal way, in a long term way, in a business outcome way, then what tends to happen is you might have a really great journey map. You might have a really great way to collect customer sentiment feedback like NPS or CSAT scores. But if you're not doing anything with those things, then it's really hard to make change within your organization. And again, the only way we can do this is if we are working across the organization, if we are bridging those functional gaps, we're sharing this information, we're gaining insights from leaders and teams throughout our organization. we only have about this much, insight into the customer experience because all of us have a lot to do. We have deadlines, we have all those things. So we can't really put our arms around everything. We need to rely on other people who understand different parts of the customer's journey. And we really have to make sure that when we talk about the customer journey, that we are connecting all of those dots to make sure that we're not just handling a tactic. We're not just doing one thing. I am dealing with a situation right now with my bank where their website is terrible. And yet, right now, every time I call, what's the first thing they tell me as a customer? Go to the website. So, if I'm calling about your broken website, what does that tell you? Well, what that tells me as a customer experience leader is that they probably have a website team who's handling certain things, fixing certain things, addressing certain things, and they have a customer support team and they have all of these different teams that are not collaborating. And what that does to the customer journey is it creates a siloed experience for the customer. And those points of frustration that I'm experiencing, they don't even know they're happening because the website is working according to how they think it should work. And the customer support team probably doesn't hear those questions. And if they do, they might not be able to bring that information back to the digital team. There are all sorts of ways that coalition building and cross-functional leadership can really help support a greater customer experience. So let's talk about a few ways to do that. These are 3 ways to increase that cross-functional collaboration. Number 1, have a universal CX language. We'll talk about what that means. Number 2, we need to celebrate more folks. We need to make sure that we are celebrating CX wins throughout the organization. We're not just patting ourselves on the back. We are actually sharing those wins throughout the organization so other people can learn and lead by example. And then we want to create a specific cross-functional CX team. Now, you may not be ready for that. You may be along a different part of your journey within your organization. So any of these things can be applied, where you are in your journey, and then you can aim for some of these things as you mature, as you get more buy-in. So number 1, have a universal CX language. This is so important. We talked about this at the beginning. I am such a big believer in this because I've seen how helpful it is. Having that CX mission statement is something that is really important to make sure you have that alignment about who are we to our customers? How do we show up no matter what? It's not about your products, it's not about your services, it's about who you are. If you can align that, that makes everything else easier. You can have discussions about priorities in a different way. You can have discussions about what's the next move for customer experience in a different way. So once you have that CX mission and that guiding North Star for your customer experience, then you want to take the next step and really define success. And this is where we use something called a CX success statement, where you want to break down, okay, what are the organizational goals? What are the leadership goals? And how do we measure success when it comes to our customer experience efforts so that they drive the results that we're looking for? If we don't take the time to do this, then we're basically throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping for the best. And David just dropped that link. We have some workbooks for you and things like that, all available to you as well at yearofcx.com. Method number 2, celebrate CX wins throughout the organization. Help every single employee see how the daily efforts of every individual in the organization, that's what drives customer experience outcomes. So when we are looking for, how do we get people to get this, to really change that culture within our organization so that there's more likelihood for coalition building and cooperation, part of that is recognizing the people and the efforts and the teams and the activities who support the customer experience who may not recognize that they do. And I'll give you an example of this. We just had a workshop with a team who had both, customer care folks there. They had some salespeople, they had account managers, and then they also had the technology team. And one of the situations that we uncovered was that, what? The technology team was asked a lot to make changes, to do certain things, all of that around trying to make things better for the customer. Yet they were never really acknowledged for that. They were never celebrated for that. Instead, what happens is we celebrate those frontline people, those salespeople, the people who are interacting one-on-one with customers. It's super important to celebrate that too. But when we're looking for what I call mission moments, when did somebody live up to the mission? What you want to do is make sure that you're going kind of that next level in. How did they live up to this? A great example that I saw was when the supply chain leader was celebrated, because that person actually recognized that they were going to have some issues. She was incredibly proactive. She went to the customer care group, she went to the social media group, and she basically said, here are the expectations we can start setting. Now, thinking like that means that she already had her arms around the fact that her role had a direct impact on the customer experience. We have to celebrate these things more and more so that other people can see themselves. They can say, oh, wow, I guess what I do is directly related to the customer experience, even though I don't interact with customers directly. That's the culture we need to build so that when we go approach those different teams and we say, hey, I need your help, we're having a customer experience issue, they understand that we're all in this together and that we need to work together and cooperate in order to deliver the results we're looking for. And then finally, in an ideal world, we want an actual CX cross-functional team. And the reason is if we can have leadership from all over the organization who really understand that we are working together to deliver not just on behalf of our customer, not just those soft skills, those nice to have moments. We are actually delivering on behalf of our organization. And we have a clear way to do that. So the best thing you can have building this team is that CX mission statement, that CX success statement, and then you can even encourage other leaders throughout your organization to create their own CX success statement. As you have all of that, when you're building this team, we like to use something called a CX charter. Now, this is straight out of the project management kind of toolkit, but essentially it's saying, okay, we're working together, setting the rules. Here's how often we'll meet, all the logistics, but then taking that a step further and say, here's how we'll prioritize. Here's what we're asking for, so that everybody in the room has a common way to address these customer experience issues. Because otherwise, what can happen with these teams is that people still come in with their departmental hat on and they're protecting their territory instead of really looking at this as how can we improve the end-to-end experience that a customer has with our organization, and how can we work together on their behalf so that we get the business results we're all looking for. So this is where you really want to get defined about your goals, your priorities, and also the minutia of, okay, what does it mean to be on this team? If you can get there, you can get so many other things done. And that data point from the State of CX report that I brought up in the beginning is a clear indicator of that. If we have strong cross-functional cooperation, we get better return on the investment of customer experience. So to recap, the challenges: customer experience is not seen as a universal business strategy. Customer experience is seen as nice to have or those soft skills. Customer experience is a set of tactics disconnected from strategy. And like I said, this is the time to have those hard truths, to be very honest about what's working here and what's not. And maybe if you look at it, you might go, oh gosh, you know what? I wrote my goals as pure tactics. I see this over and over again. Make sure that if you've done that, you start thinking about the next set of goals. How can you tie that into the strategy? Do you have a clear strategy? If not, what are the steps you can take? And then the methods, of course, have a universal CX language. Make sure you celebrate those CX wins throughout the organization with both customer facing and people who aren't necessarily interacting directly with customers. And then eventually, hopefully, you can create that cross-functional CX team to help you really guide these efforts in the best possible way you can and get higher return on your investment. Bottom line, folks, customer experience is a team sport. The more we treat this in this way, it's the more likely for us to achieve those meaningful outcomes. And there are lots of ways to keep customer experience top of mind throughout your organization. And sometimes that's where we have to start. We have to start with just making sure people are thinking about this in the right way, that we're aligning those definitions, that we're speaking the same language. And then we want to take that one step further and make sure we have those goals defined. And then we want to take that one step further and make sure we have a team of leaders who understand that even if CX isn't in their title, they have a direct impact on the customer experience, and they understand that there's a reason to invest in it. There's a reason to invest resources and time and everything else, because that's where we achieve the results. So I hope that this has inspired you to collaborate more. If you have ideas, examples, or questions, of course, we want to hear them. And so I've seen some comments coming in. Do we have some good questions here, David?
Yeah, we've got a great question. Let's start with one from Umesh. And I really love this question. How do you decide who qualifies to be in the cross-functional team from a particular department? What are the relevant criteria, KPIs?
Yeah, good. Great question. So we have some this people love when I say it depends. But we have some actually guidelines about this in our CX charter workbook, because it is a really important question. One of the things I like to say is build a core team first. So that might be people who are directly responsible for certain parts of the customer journey. So this could include folks from marketing, folks from digital. If you have a frontline like cashiers or anything like that, like actual brick and mortar, as well as things like shipping, supply chain. So look for all those places in the customer journey that have direct touch points that will impact the customer experience. So start there. But if you're dealing with maybe a shorter term issue, or you have some specific goals that you're trying to achieve, sometimes it's okay to bring people in kind of temporarily to that team. And in the guidebook, one of the things we say is the power of having that CX charter document is that as people come in and out, you can say, here are the expectations, here's the law of the land, here's the right background for you. And because it's all documented, you're not kind of revamping every time somebody joins you. I've seen a lot of examples where the cross-functional team includes a C-suite sponsor, and they may or may not come to these meetings. They might be somebody who just you need for approvals. And then you might have a vice president of customer insights. You might have your, chief marketing officer or a VP of marketing. You might have somebody from digital, somebody from distribution, somebody from customer care support. If you're a B2B tech organization, head of customer success would be very important in there. And so you build that team, you come up with the charter, and then you might have an issue and you say, you know who we need? We need our head of social because we're having a social media issue. So you invite that person to maybe a meeting or two to solve that specific problem, as long as that's the priority. And that's the beauty of this. We can lead that. We can say, you know what? I know you're telling me that this is the priority, but based on our CX mission, our CX success, and maybe some feedback that we've gotten from customers, we've identified that this is actually the priority. And so that's what we're going to work on first. So all of this is really to keep momentum going and to make sure that as you get all the laundry list of things to work on, because there's never there's never a pause. There's never like that moment where you go, oh, we checked everything off the list. Go us. There is always something to work on in customer experience and in the actual customer journey. And so that's what this team is doing. They're making sure that those efforts are moving ahead, that there's progress being made, that everybody understands the priorities, and that ultimately then that team is also the one who can see the results, can start those maybe recognition programs and say, you know what, we need to recognize more people who are doing amazing things for our customers. All of those things can come out of that CX team. So there's no perfect formula, but I would encourage you to tie it back to what outcomes you're looking for and which leaders will help you have the most impact on those outcomes. That was a long answer.
That's great. And I've included a link to our CX prioritization guidebook as well. If you've
Great.
already gone through the mission statement guidebook, already gone through the success statement workbook, and you're looking for, how do we take all of this and prioritize it? Yeah, the CX priority guidebook can help you there.
Yep.
I also want to pivot to a question that came in from email this week that I think is a wonderful counterpoint to Umesh's question. Are there any departments or positions that absolutely shouldn't be invited to participate in our experience?
Shouldn't be invited. Wow. I would say no. I mean, everybody
Oh,
is
it was bound
welcome.
to happen. I finally froze on a live broadcast.
I saw you're back a little bit. But I think that the more input we have, the more we are actually engaging with different parts of our organization, then that's really, where we can have the best impact. So I don't think there's anybody who I wouldn't invite. I do look for, temperament and like people who are leaders, who are buying in already, because if you have those naysayers who are just, not believers in this, they don't want to support customer experience in general, then that can be hard to overcome if you haven't done kind of the pre-work to get them there. So I would say that if you are looking at who to invite, think more about being inclusive rather than exclusive. That's what I would say. And are you back, David? David might be in and out. We can't guarantee tech, right? So, all right, I'm looking at some of the other questions. We have people from all over, by the way, which is super fun. We have people from looks like Dubai, New York, Chicago, Finland. Awesome. Just so cool. Pakistan. Look at this group. Brazil. I think we're covering a lot of continents today, which is pretty cool. Hey, he's back.
Look who showed back up. Sorry about that, everyone. Fun with technology today.
All right. I see we have another question from Umesh that is kind of fun. So he said,
All
I
right,
agree with the
Jeannie, am
Oh,
I still coming through loud and clear? Are we ready to jump to another question, or do you want to? I don't
sure.
know where
I
we
think
left off before I disappeared.
I think we're out of sync. So go ahead and ask the question and I'll do my best. Live broadcasts. All right. I'm on my own, folks. We'll see how this goes. So, look, I'm going to share this one. Great question. I agree with the team part, but why is it called a sport? Really interesting question. And this is probably one of those things that I didn't even realize I was kind of using an American idiom, because we talk about team sports as cooperation, collaboration a lot. So, really interesting question that I did not expect, and I will, you know, try to address more thoughtfully moving forward. So, hope that helps. But really, we just talk about team sports as collaboration, as working together, as making sure, in a team sport, you can't make a goal without your teammates. And that's the idea, is that we can't really achieve those outcomes without our teammates throughout the organization. So, good question. All right. So, I think we are nearing the end here of questions, and David popping in and out.
Yeah, I'm here again. I'm here. I'm there. I'm everywhere.
We said CX isn't magic, but maybe David is. Just
Yeah, magic that sometimes doesn't work, apparently. Um, but it sounds like my audio is coming through again. We're good.
Yep.
Shall we try to tackle another question? I
Sure,
can't
if we
even
have
see the
one.
comments because I got completely booted out. So if anybody has any great questions that I can't read, I would love to hear them.
I think
Maybe you can relay those.
I think we covered a bunch of them, and
Okay.
I actually, I did something without you, so I put it on the screen and the whole thing.
The power was inside you all along, Jeannie.
That's right. That's right. I think we can wrap up. We've got a lot of great, nice comments, but I think we've
Yeah.
we've covered all the questions at this point.
Okay. Wonderful.
Great.
Well, I will once again get out of the way, this time on purpose, and let you wrap it up, Jeannie.
Thank you so much. And David will, if you want to, you can drop in a few of the links to the chat again, because we're being asked for those. But yes, thank you everybody for being here so much. When we do these sessions, we really are trying to make a better world. And that sounds so lofty when I say that, but really our mission is to create fewer ruined days for customers because we believe it will make a better world. And by being here, by learning about these things, by approaching customer experience with that strategic vision, making sure that we are not told to just focus on tactics, making sure we are delivering outcomes for both our customers and our businesses. That's what this is all about. And like I said up front, we are always looking to you for inspiration about what we should share. We have lots of resources for you. Check out experienceinvestigators.com, check out yearofcx.com. But all those workbooks and guidebooks and these videos and everything else, that's because we know these are the things that you've asked us for, that you've been struggling with. So let us know your challenges because that really does drive a lot of the content that we deliver. In the meantime, feel free to reach out to us. We're always interested in hearing from you. And I want to thank you for being leaders in this space. So we'll be back in a couple weeks, but until then, don't be shy, say hi, let us know. And thanks again for being here.